Hello there, everybody. Hello there. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you like and subscribe to the channel. I have my buddy Andrew here with me today.
Morning, everybody.
So Andrew and I go back over 30 years, well over 30 years. We're childhood friends together. And I will say that even though my channel focuses a lot on prison and what it's like inside of the system, the reason I brought Andrew is because Andrew has a lot of questions. Andrew's never experienced the system. He's never been arrested a day in his life, never been in any trouble in his life. A family man, married with kids. So, the fact that we grew up together and then I went away for so many years. When I came home, Andrew had many questions about what it was like inside. As many of the viewers do, possess a curiosity on what it was like inside of the system itself. A matter of fact, just a quick thing. On the day I was released, after those 17 years, it was the first day of summer. And the first thing I did was go to the beach. And when I went to the beach, I bumped into Andrew. He was one of the first individuals that I saw after my incarceration. One of the first, because the beach was something that was always so meaningful to me. I wanted to go back there. So it was a big difference because one day Andrew saw me walking on the beach all bloody.
Oh my God.
Remember that? One day I was before incarceration, Andrew saw me walking down the beach dripping in blood. You recall that incident?
Like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And I will never forget.
Remind me a little bit of what happened.
I've been a Long Beach lifeguard for a long, long time, and I was working as a lifeguard, but I happened to be in the back of the beach by the shower. And I take a shower and I hear something, "Hey, Andrew," and I turn around and Joe is covered in blood. And I just turn around and I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And he told me he had a fight, and I was like, "Come, get over here!" And I had to help him clean the blood off of his body. And I was like, "What's happening?" And
I remember you telling me that was scaring people.
I was like, "Oh my God!" It was another time. And I'll say the greatest guy in the world, but Joe is. I get to the beach and my friend turns around and goes, "You got to go talk to your boy." And I go, "What do you mean?" And I look over and there's sand shooting out of the ground. And I walk over and Joe has dug a hole, this big shovel, and he's doing a workout. And people are afraid to say something to him. What is he going to do? And I'm like, nothing's going to happen to me. Lifetime friends and one of my best friends in the world. And I went over and, "What are you doing?" And he looks up and I'm telling him, looked up. The hole was so deep. And
yeah, Joe, I dug about a 6 foot hole.
Oh my God!
I dug a grave.
You were on the ground, and I was like, you're killing me, Joe." My boss here told me, "You got to fill it in." "All right, help me out." And help me. He's like, "You're helping me fill it in." I'm like, "Let's go." And we filled the hole in and walked off the beach together. And like I said, one of my dearest friends in the world. But
So Andrew and I go back a long time.
Long.
We go back decades. We went to grade school together. We ran around each other's homes as kids. I was very close with his mother and his brothers, and so there's a lot of history there. But all right, if I guess we can go right into what would be one of your main questions about incarceration.
I'm like I said, you see the movies and you see the different things. And can you tell me what is a normal day like? Like I've said to you, you get this impression that it's like a war every day. Like I've said to you, is it? You feel like it seems like something in the movies, but it can't be like that every day. What is your daily routine like? If you could take us through that.
So the first thing I would say there's not a war every day. And I remember saying this to you prior. Even though there's not a war every day, you have to be prepared for that war every day. And this is mentally draining to someone. This is really takes an emotional toll on someone, because when the cell door opens in the morning and you step out into the population of the prison, you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen, as there's an expression in prison that anything can pop off at any time, and that is true. So you're always on guard.
What does pop off mean?
It means that there could be drama any second. Okay. Next thing you know, you step out and there's a fight 5 feet away from you. Somebody's getting stabbed 10 feet away from you, And when you're in a real serious prison, like a prison like Attica, and at 7:30 in the morning when the cells open for the first time to go to breakfast, you never know what tensions or what problems were lingering between other individuals during the night. And they're saying to themselves, I'm taking care of that first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're not aware of this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're just coming out of your cell to go to breakfast, not knowing that there's a guy ready to kill another guy 10 feet away from you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you are always on point because you never know when it's going to pop off.
Right.
You know what
Right.
I mean? It doesn't pop off every day. There are days where things are normal. But as I said, I'll get into that routine, right? And I'll go through it quick because prison is very routine, extremely routine. So when your cell door opens, you have an officer that walks past in the morning for what's called the go around, right? And he'll have a clipboard and he walks around and he flies by really fast. The first thing in the morning is you'll hear an officer scream on the count really loud, or they'll do it over a speaker system. On the count, on the count. And the first morning is a standing count, which means you're supposed to be standing up so the officer sees that you're alive and well. This is how your day starts. And so you stand up, the officer comes around, and as he's doing that go around to see you're alive, he also has a clipboard, and you have to shout out to him where you're going. So say I'm in 61 cell. As he's passing my cell, I'm telling him 61, chow, and program, which means I'm going to go to breakfast and then go to my program. If I don't have a program in the morning, let's say I'm going to the recreational yard, it'll be 61 chow and yard. You know, and what's funny is he zips past at 100 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
He's not doing you a favor and taking his time. Where you going today, sir? You know, he's ripping past.
Right.
So as he's ripping past, you're 61 chow yard. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is, he finishes his count. And after that, you sit in your cell for about 30 or 40 minutes. Let's say he does that at 6:37 in the morning, because then he's calling in his count. Every officer is calling in his count to the administration so they can count everyone and make sure you're all there. And once they do that count takes about 40 minutes. The next thing you know, the speaker comes to life again, and they go on the chow, and all the cell doors open at the same time, which is a very eerie sound. But that's like in the movies. All of a sudden, you hear all these gates going, boom, 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 and the prisoners step out of their cells. Okay, and you walk down to the end of the company, and then you head in Attica. We would walk downstairs to chow. And when you would walk downstairs to chow, you would go through a metal detector. You would be periodically picked out of line for routine pat frisks. Every 4 or 5 prisoners, they may pick you out of line and put your hands on the wall. They check people for weapons, for drugs going into the mess hall. You go in there, you got 10 minutes to eat. That's about how much time you have to eat. You can't sit wherever you want. You walk in there and you sit in the next seat available. Everybody follows the thing. So you're sitting with all the guys from your company. After the 10 minutes, the officer will come up to the table, bang his nightstick on the table, and this way you all leave at the same time. You can't get up and just leave when you want. All of a sudden, let's say I'm on 38 company. They say, 38 company, take it out. And then everyone from the company gets up and then takes it out. You got your silverware. They give you a metal knife and fork on the way in. An officer hands it to you on the way in. So you have that, you eat with it. And on the way out the door, there's an officer right there with a bucket of soapy water in front of him. And you hold it up so he can see it. He gives you the nod, and you drop your fork and knife in the water. If it's missing, everything's on lockdown. So now you go back up into your cell. You went to breakfast. You go back up into your cell, and you're sitting in there until the mess hall is finished running for the whole facility. There's 2,000 prisoners. You know, there's 2 different mess halls, and they may hold 200 guys at a time. So it takes 2 hours. You know what I mean? To an hour and a half to feed everyone. And then once everyone's fed, you go back into your cell. Everyone locks in. Another half hour. They'll call on the program, on the yard. You know, one at a time. They'll go on the program. Cells open. Everyone that's going to program goes to program. And then 10 minutes later, on the recreation. Boom. And it's one thing at a time. There may be a package run for guys to pick up a package on the package run. So movement starts in the facility.
So all the cells open on that, but only those individuals and those groups go.
Yes.
So you don't want the chaos of people going all different
right.
directions.
No, he's got the list. Remember, he came around and took a go around. around. So he sees who has program. So he does on the board all the cells.
Okay.
He does on the board
Only
all
those doors.
right. And so when he hits the button, only those doors open that are going to program. And then he has all the people for yard. You know what I mean? This way he knows where everybody is and where everybody went according to his list.
Like for you, do you decide like I'm going to go to program?
No, everything, unless if you have program is mandatory, right? If you don't have a program, you don't have to go anywhere. You can sit in your cell all morning, right? But most programs are mandatory. You know, you may have a vocational program in the morning, or if you don't have a GED, you have to take your GED in the morning. You know, so whatever it is, you know, programs are mandatory. So now let's say someone goes to there's an AM program that lasts, or AM yard, or AM whatever. The AM module lasts until about 10 o'clock in the morning. So let's say you leave for program by about 8:30. At 10 o'clock, everyone's going back to their cell, the whole facility. Everyone is back by 10 o'clock. Boom, the prison locks down. Another count. Now, let's make sure everyone is back in their cell. Everyone's back from program. Everyone's back from yard. Boom, the facility does another count and another go around to see where you're going for your PM module now.
Gotcha.
He does the same go around again, you know, and you tell him where you're going. Now, this time I may have afternoon vocational shop, or I may have rec, you know, where I just want to go recreation and play handball. And this is what I mean by routine. And then he goes around, everyone goes to their afternoon program, their afternoon yard, and then they come back and they go to lunch. Everyone goes to lunch, and then they're back in their cell, and then they call it again. Once again, cell doors open, everyone goes where they want to go, and then they come back in their cell about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. When you come back in 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there's going to be a shift change of correctional officers. So now you're in your cell from like 2 to 4. You're in there for a couple hours because they're going to do a shift change. And when the shift change happens, what happens right after the shift change? Another count. Yes, yes, okay. Right. Yeah, it's count after count.
Well, this is the routine you're talking about.
This is the most important thing in prison is the count to the administration, is making sure that the prisoners are there, that no one's missing. You know what I mean? That's the big thing.
Have you ever had that where someone's missing?
Of course, yes. Been there? Most of the time, it's a mistake.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Someone got messed up on the chain sheet. They can't find them. Or someone may have went to the outside hospital, you know, for some reason, and they didn't have them on the list.
No one ever trying to escape.
You know? Oh, yeah. People have tried to escape. In Attica, I was only there only one person ever escaped from Attica. His name was Mad Dog Sully. He was the only person that ever escaped from Attica. It was before I got there.
Right.
No one ever found out how he got out of the facility. He never told anyone how he got out of the facility. He's supposedly a real tough guy. You know what I mean? I never met him personally, but he's the only one that ever escaped from Attica. I was there during an attempted escape when they found a guy near the wall with rope and like a Galvin thing he made. You know what I mean?
Grappling hook?
Yeah, a grappling hook that he had made, but they caught him, you know? So once that count changes at 3 o'clock, and then the program is pretty much done for the day. Everyone completed their programs in the AM and morning. Yeah. By 3 o'clock, the day is really done, and the night shift comes on to take their night. You know, from 3 to 11, the officers will work from 3 to 11, and this is when most guys go to the yard at night. You know what I mean? So that's the routine of prison. And if I could sum that up in 30 seconds, it's going to chow and program, coming back to your cell. There's a count. Afternoon, going to chow and program, coming back to your cell. There's a count. Evening, you could do whatever you want, go outside. One thing that happened in Attica is they got television sets in your cell. Mm-hmm. You know, they did that while I was there. And a lot of guys really enjoyed that. Instead of having to go out to the yard to watch TV, or instead of having to go out the yard because of boredom, they had a television in their cell that they sold in Commissary. You could buy a TV for like $90. In my time, it was a little black and white 10-inch television, but it was a big thing to have a TV in your cell. You know what I mean?
So you're not cut off from the world in a sense, like, because you you can have a TV, so you know what's going on. You can get to the news.
Sure.
Because I have this impression that like it's like you're in there, and what you're seeing and what you're hearing is very, very limited. So can you?
No, you have your TV. You have now the guys have tablets. You know what I mean? They've upgraded to prisoners having tablets in there. I don't know what type of access they have on those tablets, if they're allowed to get media access on there, but they still have their televisions in their
Mhm.
cell. I know their tablets allow them. They can play games on their tablets. They can download music. They have to pay for those things. You know what I mean? It's like a regular tablet. If you wanted to download something, you'd have to pay money. So withdraw it from their account, and this way they have their own music. In my days, it was Walkmans. You know what I mean? We
Right,
had
right.
Walkmans with headphones, and old-fashioned cassette tapes, because
Yeah,
they,
right.
they wouldn't let you have CDs, because people could use them and make weapons out of
Sure.
them. They're sharp,
Can you
So
speak to the money part? Like, where you don't have money on you?
no, 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 you don't. Well, there are prisoners that have money on them, cash, that were illegal.
But that's not
Right.
allowed.
You're not allowed to have money, but there is quite a bit of cash flowing around the prison. Guys hide money. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? But there's an inmate account, and the inmate account, there's people with hundreds of thousands of dollars in their inmate account. There's guys in prison that have money, and it's a regular bank account. Your money is safe there. You could have $1 million in the prison
Mhm.
account. Nothing's going to happen
And
to
that's
it.
used for the commissary.
Well, it's used for a lot of things, and you have full documentation. I mean, you get monthly statements every month about what's your account. In other words, it's a real bank on the street.
And family, friends put money in there for you.
Yes, and the money that you earn through your prison programs, right? And there's some people that don't have any money. The majority of the people don't have any money. You know what I mean? The majority of prisoners don't have anything. They have what they earn from their program. Let's say someone's a porter and sweeps and mops, they get about $14 every 2 weeks for that job. That's not a lot of money. But for somebody who has nothing at all, that's what they get their little bit of cosmetics with. You know what I mean? $14 every 2 weeks. A really good job in prison. There's jobs that pay $120 every 2 weeks.
What's the job? What kind of job is that?
Like you're working in an industry. You're working in a metal shop where you're fabricating cabinets, stuff like that. I was in a prison that had an optical program where we would make lenses for eyeglasses, and then the state sells those eyeglasses to people on the street. To eyeglass companies. Like even Cohen's, which is a big
Mhm.
glass place. A lot of the lenses are being made in prison by the guys. They're taught how to do that.
How do
They
you get
go.
those jobs?
Yeah, those jobs. In other words, to obtain a job like that, you would have to have your high school diploma. Because if you didn't have your high school diploma, they make you take that first. You can't get an industry
Mhm.
job without your diploma. And then with a little seniority, once you're in the prison for a little while, and you have to have a decent disciplinary record because they don't want anyone in there with problems. Now you could earn $120, $140 every 2 weeks, which is decent money for in prison, because you go to commissary every 2 weeks. You go to commissary twice a month, so that enable you to buy everything.
Can you talk about the commissary? Because I've heard that with different interviews and shows that you watch. What is the commissary? Can
Yeah.
you tell me what it looks like, and then I'm sorry, tell us what it looks like, and then how does that work?
Yeah, the commissary is what I always say is a lot of people hate on the commissary, and what I mean by that is that the commissary has almost anything you can think of in there. The commissary has pasta, right? It has all the different types of pasta.
Where are you cooking this?
I'll explain.
Okay.
It has different types of pasta. It has rice. It has calamari. It has cans of bean. It has fresh peppers. It has bananas. It has anything you would find in a bodega, more than what you would find in a bodega. It's a small supermarket.
And you can buy the stuff and keep it in yourself.
Yes, and that goes from everything from cosmetics to tobacco to postage stamps to mail letters, for anything you could buy in the commissary. But lots of food. There's lots of food. Cans of roast beef, cans of tuna fish, cans of Jack Mac, cans of fish, right? And they started getting away from the cans and using bags because they don't like the metal tops.
Sure.
People would get cut with the can tops, And so you have all this food. Now, how you cook it and how you store it, the commissary is different in every facility.
Mhm.
Some facilities have the ability that have stovetops. Some facilities have just little eye burners. Some facilities, Max's, a lot of them just have hot pots. So you have to cook inside of your hot pot and warm everything up. Anything that's sold in the commissary is fully cooked. There's no raw food in the commissary,
Okay.
right? So everything is fully cooked. As far as keeping it cold, there's some refrigerators in some facilities. Most Maxes don't have refrigerators, so you make one. You can find yourself a milk crate. get a clean garbage bag, heavy duty black garbage bag, put it in the milk crate. You're able to get your hands on a couple of pitchers of ice once a night. Sometimes they have an ice run, a lot of facilities.
You're allowed to have that in the cell?
No, you're not allowed, but they don't really sweat it too bad. You
Okay.
know what I mean? So you could buy your food, especially if you get packages from the street, right? You need to keep that stuff cold. You're allowed to get stuff from the street that says keep refrigerated. You can't get anything that says keep frozen. So it has to be fully cooked food that only says keep refrigerated. And if you get it, you got your little refrigerator you made under the bed with your bag. You pour ice in there, put your food in there, wrap it up in a blanket so it stays cold, push it under the corner of the bed, and the ice keeps it cold for a few days. And then you put some fresh ice on it. Guys make some amazing meals. I used to love to cook in there. I'd cook for 5, 6 guys at a time. My crew of guys. Yo, let's cook tonight. Everyone would chip in food. You know what I mean? And we'd get on the stove. You get a spot on. A lot of fights over the stove. When you get into a medium security prison,
there's a stove in the facility.
Yeah, it's not like there's no oven.
Okay,
you know what I mean? A cooktop. There's a cooktop in most of them. I believe there could be an oven in one or two.
Right.
I've never been in the facility with an oven. I've never seen it. But they have cooktops.
Like an area where everyone shares.
Yeah. There's a little cooking area. Usually 2 people could cook at the same time. There may be 2 burners over here, 2 burners over there, a cooking table. It's usually in the day room where guys are hanging out because you get day room time. This is not a max prison now. I'm talking about a medium prison. In the max prison, it's different. In the max prison, you're in your cell. There's no coming out of your cell and cooking in the max prison. Right? So that should be understood. They don't have that privilege. In a max prison, you're doing max time. In a max prison, you're cooking inside your cell with a hot pot, or with a stinger.
What's a stinger?
A stinger is something that it's like a bucket filled with water, and then you would put all your rice in a garbage bag and put it in the bucket of water. And a stinger is just like 2 prongs that guys made that goes into the water to boil.
But you make that?
Yes.
Make on your
it's
own.
rigged. It's rigged up to boil the water. Right? In a max prison, you're cooking in your cell. Unless you can make it into an honor dorm. I made it into an honor dorm in a max. Yeah, like that. Yeah, I made it into the honor dorm in Attica. And in the honor dorm in Attica, then you have refrigerators, you have ping pong tables, you have color.
What is the honor dorm?
And to go into the honor dorm,
just to sound like you're doing the right thing. And
yes. You have to have 2 years without a major disciplinary ticket. And you have to meet a certain criteria to earn your way into the honor dorm.
Do you apply for it, or they just
you apply for it? Okay. And after you apply for it, it usually takes about 2 years to even get in there. And it's for guys that are doing a lot of time. A lot of guys want to get in there, and they have their own recreational yard. You can go to the yard with the general population, or go to your own little yard with a garden, with things like that. So it's an incentive for guys to live right in the system.
Does that cause just when you said that, made me think of, because you said, you always got to be ready. So everything you're saying, like with money, so some people have more, some people have less, just like in life. So I would imagine that causes serious tension between people. But if you're a person who has one of those top tier jobs and you're in the honor, what's it called? The honor dorm. The honor dorm. Yeah. Are you a person where other people are like, does that cause heat with other prisoners because they see you?
I follow what
you
you're
have
saying.
So much more than they have.
Yeah. The job, I understand what you're saying, and it can definitely, you know what I mean? You have a job that they want, or can't get. But what causes more animosity is not really the job. It's just having anything at all, right? One thing I say that I make clear on my channel is that I don't take sides. Like, in other words, because I was in prison, other prisoners may watch my channel and be like, I'm supposed to take the side of the prisoner no matter what. The hardest part about doing time were the prisoners, not the officers. That's the reality.
And you have spoken about some officers, and like in life, there's good and bad everywhere.
Right, there's good and bad everywhere. And so the prisoners is not all prisoners, but the majority of prisoners is what makes doing prison time hard, right? Because they don't know how to do time properly. See, a lot of them, and they, anyone watching shouldn't really take this personally unless they're one of those people. A lot of them don't know how to do time. Right. A lot of them came off the street without 2 nickels to rub together. And so when they see someone who receives packages, they see someone who gets visits, they see someone who has a little money, that's where the hate is formed. Right. They don't like to see anyone have anything. Right. Because misery loves company. You never heard the saying, misery loves
Sure, of
company?
course.
Misery loves company, right? And so what you're always going to encounter that. So it's not really the job that causes them to be animosity, because anyone can get that job if they just do the right thing. They hate to see people who receive mail. They hate to see people who have visits. They hate to see people who have family and friends, right? And what people need to understand is that there's a lot of guys in prison that were good guys,
Mhm.
and they do have family that stands by their side, and they do have some friends that stand by their side, right? And the reason they have that is because they weren't bad people.
Right.
They just made some bad choices. They made some bad mistakes, right? But then the people who treated everyone like garbage on the street, and the people who robbed their own families, and the people who robbed their own friends, they're in prison with nothing, right? And so, of course, they're going to be miserable and hate the people who have shit.
Sure.
You follow?
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
when you were speaking to, because as soon as you said it, I'm thinking, all right, I want to go back to that question. What does it mean to do your time? Would you say the right way?
The right way.
What does that mean?
To do your time the right way, of course, everyone hears the old saying is number one, mind your business, right? Don't worry about what anyone else has, doesn't have. Don't worry about what they're doing during the course of the day. As I told you, don't ever look in someone's house. They call their cell their house. So when you walk down the company, you don't look inside of someone's cell to see what they're doing. You mind your own business, right? You don't get involved with the police officers in a close personal level like that. You don't rat. You don't become a snitch. You just do your time like a man.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Just do your time like a man. Don't go walk around complaining. I'm innocent. The system fucked me up. Now you're like a little girl.
Right.
You know what I mean? The DA set me up. The judge set me up. My lawyer set me up. My family set. Shut the fuck up.
Right.
Do your time like a man.
Right.
Even if it's true. Even if your lawyer did set you up, but then you handle your situation. You go to the law library and fight for it. You do what you have to do, but don't walk around the prison like a pussy because nobody's going to deal with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just do your time like a man. You got time to do. You got to do it. It sucks.
Yeah.
Listen, I would go in my cell and lay on the floor and cry. Sometimes I was so depressed, but I was in my cell by myself. Not coming out to the yard and telling guys I can't take it anymore. Do your time like a man. It's a man's place. You know what I mean? And that's what a lot of these kids need to understand too. When they get jammed up and they go into prison, there's no way out. There's no way out.
Right.
I don't care who you are. I'm talking about you write the president of the United States. You can write your governor. You can write lawyers. You can write associations to help you get out. You could write your family. You could have your family call the warden. You're not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going. The judge gave you time. You're doing your time. You know what I mean? A lot of these kids didn't realize it. 18, 19, 20 years old. They got 25 to life. They got to serve 25 years. They don't understand it yet.
Is there someone that teaches you? Because you would, again, not understanding it, but like everything you're saying, is there a process in which, like, don't look into the cell? No, I know people aren't walking down, hey, good morning, that kind of thing. But you would say, if you've never been in a place like that, there is a natural kind of inclination to look over as you're walking by. Does someone say to you when they first get there, is there some kind of orientation, for lack of a better term, to say, here are the do's and don'ts when you first get here? This is what you can do. You want to get yourself into trouble? Look in someone's cell, you're going to piss someone off. Do this. Because if you've never been, and if you're just you fucked up, and now you're there. You did something in your life. Right. You're not a person who lives in that.
I got you. So
can you speak to that?
So there's two different types of orientations. There is an administrative orientation. In other words, when you get into a prison, the first thing that they do with you is send you to orientation. It's usually 3 to 5 days long. And you go for the morning and the afternoon. Remember when I said a cop does a go around? Yeah. When you first go to prison and you're there, the first morning you wake up, you get a card, report to orientation.
And you did this.
And every prisoner does it. Every prisoner. And the officer does his go around. Where you going today? Orientation. You're doing that for the first 3 to 5 days. And that means all the new guys that came into the prison will go down to a classroom in the school building, and the lieutenant will come in and he will explain the way that things run in the prison. The package lady will come in and will explain how the package room works. The commissary employee will come in, explain how the commissary works. They will have the nurse come in and explain how the medical department works. So they're going to explain the whole prison to you over 3 to 5 days. They're going to have someone from every department come into that room and explain how to access everything that they have. You'll have a therapist come in there and explain how you can seek mental health therapy if you need it. You follow what I'm saying? So and they'll give you a rule book as well. So that you'll have your rule book. You'll get 2 different rule books, a disciplinary rule book and a rule book that explains the facility, what days you do your laundry, what days you have a visit. Everything will be explained to you. You're going to sign a paper saying that you went to orientation, that everything was explained to you. That's one orientation. 3 to 5 days where they explain the whole facility to you. The other orientation is the prisoner orientation. That means eventually one of the prisoners is going to sit down with you and tell you the way shit is. And he may tell you, yo, you went to orientation, they told you this is how the package room works? Yeah, yo, they're full of shit. Package room don't work like that, son. If you want to go down to the package room, this is how you get down to the package room. Because, of course, they have the way that the administration is going to explain it and the way the prisoners...
reality of the
reality is the way they know it works. You know what I mean?
I can see you being that guy pulling someone aside.
Right, listen, this is the way it goes down. Right? They'll tell you, like, when you go, there's a grievance process. Let's say you disagree with the way you've been treated in the prison. Maybe they didn't let you have something you were supposed to have in the package room. Maybe they denied a visit when you were entitled to a visit. So guys want to file a grievance. And there's a grievance committee that you go through and everyone comes down in there. So the administration will explain this grievance process to you. But then a prison will explain to you, yo, if you file a grievance, your bid is going to be held. Right? There's guys that file grievances on everything.
Your bid, you said, like your time there.
Yeah.
The guards are going to, the prison guards are going to give you a hard time. You think?
Oh yeah. If you start filing grievances, there's guys that go in there and file grievances.
Give me an
example
everything. Of what a grievance is.
You go down to the package room. You're supposed to get a package of cookies that you're allowed to have. The officer says you can't have them. Why? Because you're not allowed raisins. And it says these cookies have raisins. And you say no, those cookies don't have raisins. It says raisin flavor. I said, look on the ingredients. There's no raisins in there.
Right.
It says raisins flavor. I'm just giving a very small example.
Sure.
So I'm allowed to have those cookies. Officer says you can't have them. So you got 3 choices. You could destroy them, throw them out. That means the officer's going to eat them. If you choose the destroy thing, right? You could send them back, return to sender, or you could put them aside for a grievance, and you could grieve the issue. You say, all right, I'm going to grieve the issue, right? Because it says raisin flavor. It says there's no raisins in there. So you go back and grieve the issue. The officer's coming to punch you in your face. They're coming to your cell that night. They're going to rip your cell apart to pieces. They're going to throw your legal mail in the toilet. They're going to put you up against the wall. You think you're going to file a grievance against an officer and he's not going to do anything? Who the fuck are you? You're a fucking prisoner, motherfucker. That's their attitude. You're going to fucking file a grievance on me, you fucking piece of shit? I told you you can't fucking have them. That's the way they deal with situations.
So knowing that, why would they do that? Why would you file a grievance?
80%,
you know that's going to happen?
80% of them would do that. 20% of the officers won't. I can't give you the exact percentage.
Sure.
Maybe 50-50. We'll go with 50-50.
Sure, okay.
50% of them will God forbid you file a grievance directly against an officer. This officer did this to me. This officer, he's going to send some other officers to torture you. Right? They don't care about rules and regulations. They don't give a fuck about
they do.
But what you know what? They'll put you in the hospital. They'll beat you to death.
And get away with it?
I've seen them beat guys to death over the smallest grievance.
But they get away with it.
Most of the time they get away with it.
Wow.
Most of the time they get away with it.
So you can see
there's a lot of officers, Andrew, that would never do that. There's some good officers that would never do that. But that good officer would have given you the cookies in the first place because you were in the right. But there's a lot of officers that don't care whether you're in the right or not, whether you're in the right or wrong or not. They don't give a shit because in your eyes, you're a piece of shit. You understand? But what that does, as I've explained in other videos, is it creates a tremendous amount of animosity in the prisoner that's going back into society. It also teaches him that authority is a farce. You understand? That they don't follow rules or laws either. And so it's subconsciously what happens subliminally is you say to yourself, if the authority doesn't follow the rules, why should I have to follow the rules?
Sure.
You know what I mean? You incarcerated me and locked me up because I broke the law of society, right? Shouldn't you follow them as an officer? Right. And so I said there's good and bad on both sides. There's good and bad on both sides. But yeah, the system works like that. The grievance thing is a rough thing. Grievance thing is a rough thing in prison,
So unless you are really like you're rights are really violated, you're saying you should, even if they are, even then, you really should not file a grievance.
No, I don't say that, because everyone's entitled to do what they want to do. Everyone's entitled to do their time the way they want to do it. I think that there are some situations that are grievance worthy, and some things you got to sweep under the rug.
Have you ever filed a grievance?
I filed a grievance before. Yeah, I don't
knowing what could come as a result of
Yeah, I filed a grievance before. I filed a grievance on some FRP issues, which is the family reunion program, where you get to spend time with your family, and they were denying me for certain reasons that were unjustifiable,
Mhm.
and so I grieved the issue like that. That's something that an officer really don't give a fuck about anyway. I'm talking about when you file a grievance directly against an officer.
Okay.
You know,
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
have you ever had to do that?
Not that I recall. Not that I recall. You know, but I've watched guys that every day they file grievances against officers. They don't last long.
Well, that's what I was saying. When I'm saying filing a grievance, I'm talking about what you're talking about against an officer.
Yeah.
Like, would you say to somebody, "Hey, listen, don't file grievances against the officers because this is what could happen to you"?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I tell one of my buddies that. One of my buddies is going to write a grievance. I just say, listen, you have a right to do it, but be prepared. They're going to be coming to probably come for you. There could be repercussions. So make sure the issue is important to you.
Yeah.
If the issue is important to you, go ahead and do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can't let the officers get away with doing just what they want to do. You know what I mean? You know, and instead of doing that, let's say we'll go back to the stupid cookie thing.
Yeah.
I'll give you another way to handle it. You know what I mean? You're entitled to it. You feel like you were supposed to have it, right? And so he doesn't give it to you. And then maybe you have a relationship with the officer at your job, or the sergeant there, and you can go to him and say, yo, listen, maybe you could do me a favor. What's up? The officer in the package room didn't give me the cookies. I'm really entitled to have them. You think you could call down there for me and get them? We had a sergeant in Sing Sing. His name, we called him Give It Back Mac. Sergeant Mac was his name, and everyone called him Give It Back Mac. He was everything. Give to the prisoner. You just go see Give Him Back Mac. Let's say the officer told you couldn't have him. You go see Sergeant Mac. Hey, Sergeant Mac, they told me I couldn't have this in the package room. He'd go there, give it back. He would tell and he was a sergeant, so he outranked the officer. Give it back, give it back. You know, he was prisoner friendly. He got a tremendous amount of respect.
I was going to say, so he kind of understood. This is bullshit.
If there was a riot in Sing Sing, nobody was letting anything happen to Sergeant Mac. Nobody was believe that. No prisoner would let anything happen to Sergeant Mac. Everyone respected him. Everyone, you know what I mean? He was an older black gentleman. He was a sergeant, and he was not pro-prisoner. He just didn't like giving people a hard time.
Right and wrong.
He'd say, what's the big deal? Give the guy the cookies. Who gives a shit? You know what I mean? And so the reason you couldn't have raisins is because you can make wine with raisins. That's why they wouldn't allow cookies with raisins. But that's just one example of that.
Right.
You know?
So you would think, like, and again, like, from my point of view, it's like, it just seems like just common sense. If you're the guard, we get what your job is to do. But why are you going to fuck with these people that are already in a high tense situation? You're making it worse. Why do they do that? Like, what is with that?
So there's various ways to look at this situation, right? I'll use the one as the guard that comes in to give everyone a hard time first. There are guards that come in there to give everyone a hard time. Why? I can't speak for them personally. Maybe they're miserable at home. Maybe they believe all prisoners are pieces of garbage. Maybe they believe in being an authoritarian and running everything with a real tight ship. You know what I mean? That's one thing. But then going out of your way to make someone's life hell is different. And a lot of them, a percentage of them, do that because that's their nature. They're not nice people. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of psychology in it, as I've explained in many of my videos. There's the gang mentality. You know what I mean? When you get a bunch of people in a group and then one officer does it, the other officer wants to feel like he's part of that group. He doesn't want to be seen as a sucker. He doesn't, right? So he starts joining in with the officer who's abusive. And then you got a group of guys that just come in there and make lives hell for prisoners. Those guys exist. And to the contrary, you have to give credit to the officers that come in to just do their 8 hours. There's plenty of them that come in and they clock in on the thing and they do their 8 hours and then they clock out. They put their feet up on the desk and they never say a word to anyone. You know, there's guys like that too. You know what I mean?
Meaning they're not doing their job, or they're just like
they're just doing their job.
Doing their job.
Yeah.
Like they're not. When you say put your feet up on the desk, I had this impression of them just letting people do whatever they want.
There's some of those too. There's some of those too. You know what I mean? And you know, and then, so that's an officer's perspective. As we say, there's good and bad, right? And the same thing with the prisoners. There's good and bad, dude. There's guys that are just doing their time. They don't want no problem with anyone. And some of them may be some very dangerous individuals.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And they just want to do their time. And then there's guys in there that are just pieces of shit. You know what I mean? They're looking to steal. They're looking to get over. They're looking to extort people. They're looking to gain from anyone that they can, you know, because that's how they lived on the street, you know, and they only see incarceration as a temporary setback.
So not learning from their mistakes.
No, they just
the same attitude and bringing it in there.
They just see it as
what led them there, they're still doing it.
Yeah, or even worse. It's just a temporary setback for them. They're just waiting to go back to the street and continue it. And then there's other guys that are in there like, yo, I destroyed my life. How did I end up in here? And I don't ever want to be in here again because this life is for the birds. You know what I mean? So everybody's different. You know, the idea to doing good time is finding those group of people that are in the same mind frame as you. You know, guys that are focused on education, guys that are focused on doing the right thing. You know, and that doesn't mean that you can't do shit. Like for years in prison, I was smoking weed when I was in there, you know, trying to get over on the system. But there's guys that know how to move and do it smart and do it quiet. You know what I mean?
And when you're saying that, like, and I'm hearing you can, and I'm talking about just a regular life, you're in there, but you want to do your time. You're not, but you want to just, you're not involved with any of that. You don't want to get involved. You're not looking like in the movies. You're not looking to jam somebody up, have a fight. You just want to go through your day like what you're doing. Yeah, maybe you're going outside the rules a little bit, but you're not doing anything to hurt any. You can do that.
Yeah, you can do that. But you will have people that go out of their way to fuck with you from both ends. There's going to be guards that go out of their way to fuck with you.
Even if you're a quiet person, you keep to yourself. You have your friends in there. You're not looking. You're just doing your time.
Yeah.
And people will still.
I had to beat up an officer that was screwing with me every day. I physically beat him up. I took a shot.
What was he doing?
I said, this was an officer in Attica that used to harass everyone. He used to harass everyone. He was just a dick. Nobody liked him. The officers didn't like him because he caused so many problems between officers and prisoners. I mean, between officers and prisoners, the officers didn't care for him too much. And he turns out to be my company officer. You know what I mean? And he's always bothering people, always trying to talk to you. You really don't want to have the conversation with the officer. He's always trying to talk to you, and he was stupid. He was just not a bright guy. And I think I told the story before where I was on the phone with my wife and she was dying of cancer. And she was in the hospital. And as I'm on the phone with her, he's poking me with his stick and poking me with his stick.
You never told me this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I told him in one of my videos. I ended up picking this cop and slamming him on the bed. I told him, yo, stop fucking with me, man. I'm telling you. You know what I mean? So, I mean, there's officers that go out of their way. You know, and you got to be careful because the next day he may put a weapon in your cell. Say he was doing a cell search and he found a weapon in your cell. You're staying in prison for another 5 years.
Now, and you think like a prisoner like that, they're basically just bullies. They're doing shit.
An officer like that.
Yes, an officer like, I'm not saying all of them, I'm saying an officer like that, knowing, well, you're not going to do it because you're a tough guy. And, but I'm an officer and I know I could fuck with Joe because he's not going to do it because he can't. Do you think that's part of it? Is that they do it because they know you're not going to do anything anyway? I can get away with this because you can't touch me. You can't do anything to me.
Yes. Until they learn. I have a young black kid comes in. I don't remember his name and I didn't know him. I never met him. I only saw him with my own eyes. He comes into the facility, into Attica, 42 company, D block, and he goes out to the yard for he's only there a day or two. This is a powerful story. Small kid, small black kid. What I mean by small, 5'5", 120 pounds. He's got 25 to life to serve, you know, so he's going to be in prison for a long time. And the officers do what we call is on his first trip to the yard, they rape him. And what I mean by rape him, they don't physically rape him. They do such a violent pat frisk on him on purpose. This is what they did to new prisoners to shake them up. The prisoners would say, oh, you just came in? Yeah. Did they rape you yet? Right? They said, no. What do you mean? Did they rape me? You could be prepared. Because when you go to the yard, they put you up on the wall and they'll have 4 or 5 officers really grabbing you, really searching you, grabbing your balls, putting their hands up the crack of your ass, completely violating you. You know what I mean? To scare the shit out of you. And they want to see how you're going to react to that. And they may do that a couple of times during the first week or two that you're in prison. Because you're
every new prisoner.
They don't grab everyone, but a lot of them go through it. The majority of them go through it. They want to see how you're going to react.
Mm-hmm.
They're letting you know that this is their house. They want to see how you're going to react to that, right? And so the prisoners call it in Attica being raped by the officer, the real violation of the pat frisk that they do. So they do that to this young black kid as he's on his way to the yard. Well, that shit shakes him up really bad, man. He didn't like it at all. And he gets his hand on 2 pieces of steel. I'm talking about pieces of sharpened steel, this long, 12, 14 inches long, with handles on the end of it. And you're allowed to have like an army coat in prison. That's one of the coats you're allowed to order, a plain army coat. And the next night, when the kid was going to the yard, he had each one of those pieces of steel up his sleeves and in his hands. And at the end of the company, as you're walking to the yard, there's an officer by the gate who pulls the gate open so you can walk out to go downstairs to the yard. And there's 2 officers on the other side of the gate. As soon as he got to the gate, he stabbed the first one in the chest, boom, grabbed the other one, stabbed the other one in the neck, and he just started stabbing them like crazy. I can't believe they all lived in that incident. He didn't murder any of them, but he stabbed them all several times. And that was because they completely violated that kid unnecessarily, unjustly, just to teach him a lesson, to be bullies, and they got it handed to them that day. They picked the wrong kid that day. Mm-hmm. They picked a kid that was doing 25 to life, just starting his sentence, and he said, "You're not going to do that to me. These guys aren't going to do that to me." I don't know what happened to that kid. You never see him again after that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Did they beat him to death? I didn't hear that they beat him to death. You would hear when they beat someone to death. They would never do it in front of someone. They would never do it in front of prisoners, of course, because then there could be a small riot or a revolt. But if the officers had a beef with someone, they would get them into an area where nobody else was around. What they would do is, let's say when 50 guys are going to the recreational yard, the prisoner that they have a problem with, you step out of line, put your hands on the wall. They let everybody else go to the yard. And now everyone else goes to the yard and they have this guy alone. And then they could all stick to the same story. We were giving him a routine pat frisk. He took his hands off the wall and he attacked us, right? And so that was the common way that things would get done. When there was some tension inside of the prison, the officers were beating some people up after 9/11, after the terrorist attacks. They were grabbing Muslim prisoners and beating up Muslim prisoners, which was not right. You understand? They have nothing to do with anything. You know what I mean? And so it became so prevalent over the week after 9/11 that when we were going to the recreational yard and they pulled a Muslim guy out of line, they said, "You step out, put your hands on the wall over there." Then they told the other 40 guys, "Forward march to the yard." No one moves. And the officer, I was in that line, and the officer said, "March, forward march." And someone said on the line, "We ain't leaving until that guy gets in line with us." In other words, they knew that 50 prisoners right there had had enough. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And we're not going. We're not moving. You want to pat him down? Pat him down. And when he gets back in line, we'll go to the yard. You know what I mean? And so the prisoners started to do that for a week or two. And so the officers in that situation realized that if they're going to do something shady, you got 50 witnesses right here who aren't willing to move, and you're going to need more than 50 officers to handle 50
How
prisoners.
Many officers in that situation? Because it's something I was thinking about as you're talking. Obviously, the officers are way outnumbered compared to the prisoners.
Yes.
So in a situation like that, I mean, if the prisoners wanted to, they could go off, and those guys can't do anything to stop it.
Well, it's not that they can't do anything.
But that group could really be putting themselves in danger.
Oh, yeah, they could be killed. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But they pull one button on their walkie-talkie and 100 officers show up.
Gotcha.
You know, within 30 seconds.
Gotcha.
Officers come. They have special groups of officers, response teams. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like in Rikers Island, they call them the Turtles because they come in with the shells and the shields and the helmets and the batons. Every prisoner has a response team. Mm-hmm. So let's say something was to pop off like that, the officer just pulls the button And next thing you know, you have 50 more officers running down the hallway. And they got tear gas guns, and they got shields, and they got helmets, and they got leather gloves on, and so they come, they're prepared. The prisoners may be able to take control for the first, minute or two and hurt some people, but the team is coming.
Okay.
The response team is coming. And then it gets bad. It gets really bad,
You ever see anything like that?
Yeah, I've seen shit like that 100 times. 100 times, yeah.
But again, it seems like it, to me, it just seems so simple in a way. And I'm talking from the point of view, if I were the guard, I don't want to be soft, but I don't want to be an asshole either, because the tension is so high that, yeah, deal with the discipline you have to deal with the assholes, but let people do their time.
An officer should be firm, but fair.
Yeah.
Firm but fair, And I remember one of the sergeants or lieutenants during an orientation saying that. Anytime you have to deal with me, he said, I'm firm, but I'm fair. You know what I mean? That's all you ask for someone that's fair. Who gives a shit if they're firm? Just be fair. You know what I mean?
There's a difference between being strict and being an asshole.
You have to realize what they're dealing with on one hand, too.
Sure.
They're dealing with robbers, rapists, child molesters, murderers, serial killers, home invaders, scam artists.
Dangerous people.
They're dealing with very, very dangerous people. So you can't be soft, but you don't have to be abusive.
Right.
You don't have to be abusive.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, and they're not all abusive. I'm not saying they all are. You know what I mean? It's everyone's different, man, Andrew. So living in there is I always said I had to become a psychologist to deal with the 2,000 personalities that I had to deal with on a daily basis in there. The 1,500 prisoners, the 500 officers, there's just 2,000 personalities coming at you, and you had to learn how to deal with all of them to get through your day. There's some guys that never come out of their cell. They just decide to live in their cell. There's some guys that just decide to get high all day. There's all different escapes. There's some guys that play basketball all day. Some guys that look at pornography. Some guys that people find their own thing. Obviously, you want to find something productive. I tried to find things productive. Mm-hmm. Education, studying theology, studying psychology, because I wanted to know how my life ended up where I was in that position.
Right.
Most people aren't like that. The majority of them, and like I said, it's just an inconvenience for them. You know what I mean? And living with the prisoners is a hard way to do time, because they're never quiet. There's no quiet.
Right.
They scream all night long. Because a lot of them feel like they have something to prove. A lot of them want to be heard. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. A lot of them feel like they need to act like somebody in order to get respect, instead of just realizing that.
Is that something you can see through? Kind of right
well,
away?
I see through it. You know what I mean? I see through it. A lot of them. There's some real tough, dangerous guys in there. I would never want to play with, dude. I never made a video saying that I was, like I said, one of the shot callers in there or the toughest guy in prison. If you act like the toughest guy in prison, someone will bring you down. There's some tough people in there. You know what I mean? That you don't want to play with. But you just learn to mind your business and do your time like a man. And you'll be all right. You'll be all right. Don't let anyone push you around is one thing. Don't let anyone take advantage of you. Don't let anyone friendly extort you.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah, friendly extortion is when, you have extortion where someone will come up to you and say, you fucking go to commissary, you get me a carton of cigarettes, or I'm going to fucking rip your face open. You got it? That's extortion.
That happens.
Of course that happens, right? Especially to the rapists and the child molesters. The rapists and the child molesters, instead of beating them up and just getting them shipped out, they extort them for whatever they can before they end up shipping them out.
Right.
First, let's get them for everything we can. But then there's friendly extortion. Let's see, here's friendly extortion. You come into the prison, I have nothing. I don't have a pot to piss in, right? Hey, what's happening, man? How you doing, brother? You all right? Yo, where'd you come in from? I try to act like I'm becoming your friend.
Right.
Yo, oh man, you got a cigarette on you? You got a cigarette? You give me a cigarette. Thank you. 3 hours later, come back again. Yo, you got another cigarette, man? Yo, when you go to commissary, you think you can get me a pack of cigarettes? I got you the next time I go. Now you give the guy a pack of cigarettes. He don't give nothing back to you. He's never giving nothing back. Yo, I got no food. You think when you go to commissary, you can get me a little food? Right? Next thing you know, you're feeding this guy, because you know what I mean? You're not standing up for yourself. He's friendly extorting you.
Right.
Then his boy comes. Yo, see if he'll get me this. See if he'll get me that. Next thing you know, they got you under the wing, right? So when a new guy would come in, if I saw he was a little timid and he was one of the guys that was hanging out with us, I said, listen, you hanging out with us, don't, you know, and some guy comes up and asks you something, it's all right to give him a cigarette if you want to, right? But when he comes for that second one, you tell him, listen, I don't have it like that. That's it. It's a wrap. You put the kibosh on it right there.
And the person doing that, is there like a consequence to that, or does he know, all right, this guy's not going to go along with it?
Right,
somebody else.
Right, because the guy that's trying to friendly extort you like that, could he be a real tough guy? Yeah, he could be a real tough guy, but maybe he just ain't got a pot to piss in and he's acting like one. But whatever the case may be, this is where a guy has to stand up for himself and say, oh, listen, I don't have it like that. I'm in prison. My family's sending me money to survive too. I can't be giving you cigarettes.
I'm taking care of myself. I can't be taking care of
right. That's it. Yeah, and you look him in your eyes when you say that. You know, you don't look down. You look him right in your eyes. Not mean, not nasty. Just tell him, yo, listen, I can't take care of you, brother.
And there are people like you who would say, listen, you can't. Don't let this happen. This guy. Someone might say, but if you don't have that group, you're the new guy. I'm the new guy. We all know you get that feeling when someone's you shouldn't be really trusting anybody until you really know.
That's your sixth sense, man. You have a sixth sense.
No,
everyone has that sense that knows if someone's trying to push up on them a little bit.
You don't know this person from a hole in the wall and they're asking you for shit. The answer's no.
Unless it's someone in your own crew.
That's what I mean. Like you don't know the guy. You have no idea who this person is.
You got to watch the guys in your own crew too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to pay attention to them too. Pay attention to everything.
Everyone's got a scam.
Yeah.
Not everyone, but a lot of people in there. So that again leads to that high level of tension or anxiety at all times. Yeah. So when you're saying things pop off, that's
But the guy in your own crew, I mean, if
he's your friend,
if he's in your own crew, and is like I said, prison is really segregated. So you're in the crew with 10 white guys there. They hang out together all the time. You know who's who. You get a feel of her. You're with them every day too. So you may not get the feel of them on day one, but by day 14, you're feeling everyone. You're talking, you're playing cards together, you're hanging out together. One of you guys in the crew go, give me a cigarette, you give them the whole pack. Here, take a pack. Give me a pack back when you go to commissary. And when commissary comes and he gives you the pack back, you know it's give and take. It's give and take. And you guys take care of each other. You take care of each other.
You had said in one of the videos that you would have because guys come into prison. And you had a kid, and you had like a
welcome
thing, like give people maybe you're going to need some stuff. But you expect nothing in return from them.
No, I would keep under my bed a bag. For if one of the guys will come in, a good guy would come in. Sometimes you don't have your personal. If you're just coming into the prison from jail, you have nothing. You may not make it to commissary for a month before your money gets cleared and before your commissary name comes around, right? And so I keep a bag under the bed with 20 of the ramen noodle soups, some peanut butter and jelly, a pair of socks and underwear, clean pair of socks and underwear, a couple of clean shirts, and a bunch of food. Some coffee is important. The guys love their coffee, a pack or two of Rollies, which are the cigarettes to roll up, and I keep that bag under the bed. And when a guy came in and he was a good dude, and he didn't have nothing, here, take this. And I said, listen, don't give me nothing back. I don't want anything back. What I want you to do is when you get a couple of commissary buys, I want you to create one of those bags and put it under your bed for the next guy that comes in.
Forward.
Right?
Pay it forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I taught a lot of guys to do that because they used to do that in the old days, and then prison became so morally corrupt, guys weren't doing that. And I said, we're supposed to do that. Make sure the guys are taking care of when they come in. Make sure they have everything that they need. And then make sure you do that for the next guy that comes in. You know what I mean? And that's it. And that's what we used to do for one another.
So there is a lot of learning the ropes, kind of when you say
you learn them fast, though, dude.
Yeah.
You learn them fast. You're in there 365 days a year. You keep your eyes open. I'll close with this. The best advice I ever heard was from one of the biggest scumbag or lieutenants in prison. Right? I really honestly forget his name right now, but we were in a prison, and during orientation, he came into the room to explain the prison, and we're all sitting in there, and all of a sudden he screamed loud, "Pay attention!" And everyone looked up, and he said it 100 times over the course of the day. Pay attention when you walk around this facility. Pay attention when you talk to other prisoners. Pay attention when you talk to other officers. Pay attention to everything around you. This is a maximum security prison. This is not Disneyland. Pay attention. And if someone can learn to pay attention and use their sixth sense and just mind their business and do their time, He'll be all right.
All right.
He'll be all
All
right.
right.
That's it. Anything else?
No, it's just that's
That's
my
it.
friend.
This is
That's
a
it.
wrap. I'm
All right.
closing this down for now. That's Prison 101. All right. And any other questions you ask me in the comments, and I'll get back to you.